On January the 28th, 2013, Supreme Court Justice Scalia, while speaking at Southern Methodist University, said, "It's not a living document." He was talking about the Constitution. "It's dead, dead, dead." Now, Scalia, as we all know, died recently, and he was on the bench of the Supreme Court for about 30 years. And he openly says the Constitution is dead, and he repeats the word dead 3 times to give it emphasis. I agree with Scalia. The legal and historical research I've done over the years proves that the Constitution is indeed dead. My 4-part video on the Perverted Constitution goes into detail on this. For example, pursuant to Article 2, Section 1, Paragraph 5, only natural-born citizens can be President of the United States. Natural-born citizens are people who are born in the country by parents who are citizens. Now, how hard is that to understand? To watch an excellent legal discourse on this subject, watch Publius Hulda's discourse on natural-born citizen. Now, this lady is a lawyer and is very knowledgeable when it comes to the law. Her blog discusses many different constitutional subjects. Now, neither Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, or Barack Obama are natural-born citizens. Cruz was born in Canada. His mother was a U.S. citizen, but his father wasn't. Rubio's parents were not U.S. citizens when he was born, and didn't become citizens until 4 years after Rubio was born. Obama's father was a citizen of Kenya, which was a part of Britain at the time, but he was a citizen of Kenya all his life and never became a U.S. citizen. Thus, none of them are qualified to be President of the United States. But the media, the press, many law professors, politicians, and judges have created the fiction that they are. And the people who support these politicians look with contempt upon the messengers of constitutional truth. It's indeed hypocritical for Cruz, Rubio, and Obama to say they support the Constitution when they themselves are not even constitutionally eligible to be President of the United States. Like Scalia said, the Constitution is dead, dead, dead. More evidence that the Constitution is dead can be seen when it comes to the right to free labor. The right to free labor was purchased at a high price. It took a bloody civil war to bring an end to the institution of slavery a century and a half ago, so that all working people would have the right to a free labor market. In fact, if we research the law, we can see that the Constitution is still supposed to guarantee the right to free labor. One set of law books the lawyers use a lot when it comes to showing what American law is American jurisprudence. Now, the lawyers call it AmJur for short. They use it a lot. So, let's look at AmJur when it comes to our right to free labor. Labor and Relations, Section 1. In labor laws, the term labor may be used in a comprehensive sense as including those who toil with their brains as well as those performing manual work. Section 2, Constitutional Protection of Right to Work. The right to labor and its protection from unlawful interference is a constitutional as well as a common law right. Every man has a natural right to the fruits of his own industry. Yeah, that's your wages, people. Labor is deemed to be property, especially within the meaning of constitutional guarantees. Thus, the right to acquire property includes the right to acquire property by labor. The right to earn wages is just as much property within the protection of the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to the federal Constitution as earned wages. Now, since the right to labor is protected by the 14th Amendment and numerous guarantees of state constitutions, one cannot be deprived of such a right by arbitrary mandate of the legislature. and it merits legal protection. Such right is likewise embraced by the Fifth Amendment to the federal Constitution. Section 3. As a general principle, every member of a community has a right to enjoy a free labor market, to have a free flow of labor for the purpose of carrying on the business in which he or it has chosen to embark. This right is not merely an abstract one, it is one recognized as the basis of a cause of action where there is an unlawful interference therewith. Specifically, laborers have a right to a free and open market in which to dispose of their labor, or a right to a free access to the labor market for the purpose of maintaining or increasing the incorporeal value of their capacity to labor. A laborer has the same right to sell his labor as any other property owner. You probably never thought about things in that way, did you? Now, how many of you knew that your labor was property? Now, I didn't know that till I studied the law for myself. You see, the right to free labor means you can go out and find work, contract your labor for the highest wages you can get, and you receive your wages in full. That way you can spend your money as you see fit to acquire property, support your family, and so on and so forth. Now, what happened to our right to free labor? See, when you have a right to free labor, you pay your taxes indirectly as a consumer when you spend your money. See, the practice of determining your allowance from labor or your wages, well, that's what the slaveholders did with their slaves back in before the Civil War. They'd work their slaves for wages, and the only part of those wages the slaves were able to keep was whatever allowance the master chose to let them have. What perverted it? Like I say, folks, just go look at that 4-part video I've got on the Perverted Constitution, and I fully explain what happened. It was that New Deal of Franklin Roosevelt back in the 1930s. It just forced socialism into our American system. And the Social Security Act of 1935 was the first law that started taxing labor or wages at 1%. And it started at 1% in 1937. Now look at it. Yeah, now they just look at our wages or our labor as their property to exploit to any levels they wish, with no restraints. No restraints. In short, the meaning of the 16th Amendment has been perverted to destroy the people's free labor market. It has stripped the people of their most sacred property right, their right to free labor. For labor is the foundation of all other property rights. See, and the Supreme Court ruled in 1920 in Eisner versus Macomber that the 16th Amendment gave the federal government no new taxing powers. All it did is remove the rule of apportionment to taxes imposed upon incomes, and the income legally defined is restricted to the gains and profits of business activity, not the fruit of your labor, not your wages. And the Supreme Court ruled, like I said, no new taxing powers were conferred upon the federal government. And in the 30s, when Social Security started taxing your wages, it was reported in the press that that was a brand new taxing power that had never been exercised before in the history of the United States. And to this day, the Supreme Court still hasn't ruled upon the constitutionality of taxing your wages. Interesting. Interesting. See, I had an experience a while back in 2011 when I was painting a couple of doors on a rental unit. Let me share this with you. This comes from my book, The Slaveholders Won the Civil War. You can get that book on Amazon. On April 6, 2011, I was painting a couple of doors in the front yard of a rental house in Anderson, South Carolina. A guy stopped in a car that had the city of Anderson on it. He wrote me a uniform summons for the crime of working without a business license. I signed the summons under protest. He asked me why I did that. I said slavery. On the summons, court was scheduled for April 13th. I was told by the labor cop that if I got my city license before noon the day prior to court, the summons would not be turned into the court. I filed a motion for continuance, and court was rescheduled for Friday, May 13th. I filed a motion to dismiss along with a supporting brief on April 26th. On May 5th, the city attorney filed a return to motion to dismiss. On May 9th, I filed a response to return to motion to dismiss. On May 13th, I showed up for court. Now, before my case was called, all the folks in the orange suits went first. Now, one of the men in orange suits had been charged with prowling. When the officer who had arrested him was talking, he interrupted the officer and exclaimed, "Your Honor, I wasn't prowling, I was leaving the premises." Yeah, I'm sure when the blue lights appeared, he indeed tried leaving the premises. Anyway, when my name was called, I could tell the judge had not read the pleadings in my case, so he asked the gist of my arguments. I told the judge that laws such as this are a badge of servitude, and that laws such as this were declared void by General Sickles when South Carolina was under martial law after the Civil War. I said that the municipal code, which requires people to pay a fee for a license just so they can contract their labor, violated the 13th and 14th Amendments and the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and 1871. I said that, as a bare minimum, a person who works for a living should have the same rights as a newly freed slave after the Civil War. Well, the judge said he needed time to study the arguments in the case, and he'd get back with us when he made his ruling. Well, you know what his ruling was? I don't know. They never called me back. And it's been almost 5 years now. They just swept it under the rug. I wonder why. Anyway, if my arguments had no merit, then why did the court sweep my case under the rug? And they've never bothered me since, when I work in the city of Anderson either. And you think about this. You see, according to South Carolina law, when a criminal statute is challenged on constitutional grounds, after the court rules, the appeal goes straight to the state Supreme Court. And then I could appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Yeah, I could fast track the thing. I was ready and I was eager for this, but the court never called me back. Well, again, I wonder why. Like Scalia said, the Constitution is dead, dead, dead. And what greater evidence is there that our Constitution is dead than our free labor market has been destroyed, thus dishonoring the sacrifice that was made by those who struggled and died in the Civil War. Now, folks, the reason I support Mr. Trump is because he says he's going to make America great again. He doesn't say America's great. He wants to make it great again. And one other thing I caught in one of his rallies a while back, the guy that was introducing him said that Mr. Trump is going to restore your liberty. He didn't say we have liberty. He said he's going to restore it. See, I submit to you that he knows. He knows. And you see, he's not one of the establishment politicians that robbed us of our right to free labor. And his tax plan is going to move us back in the direction of a free labor market. And I submit to you, they don't like that.